the sine of theta is negative 4/7, and it's in quadrant 3. Draw our triangle. Theta comes out of the middle. And since the sine is 4/7, so negative 4/7, we'll deal with the negatives in a minute. The hypotenuse is 7, and the 4 is the opposite. Okay, so this is a negative 4 actually, because we know that point is negative something when you go negative something this way and then negative something this way to get into the third quadrant. Does everybody understand that? So your cosine is going to be negative 2. All right. For the first time now, we have position. It says quadrant 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to do x squared plus 4 squared equals 7 squared. And you don't need signs for that, because when you square a negative 4 or a positive 4, you're still going to get 16. So we're going to get x squared equals 49 minus 16. So x squared equals 33.
Yes.
And x equals the square root of 33. So this here is going to be negative square root of 33. And the negative goes on the outside of the hood, because we know that this point here is going to be a negative negative, right? So they both have to be negative. Does anybody have any questions on how to get my numbers? Third quadrant, in order to plot a point in the third quadrant, the first guy has to be negative and the second guy has to be negative. You don't have to do it that way. You can do all students take calculus at the end, which is the way I do it. I leave everything positive, and then I change the signs of the sine and the cosine and the tangent, depending on what quadrant it's in. So I'm going to teach you both ways, and you guys do whatever you need to, but some of you are messing up a little bit on the signs. Most of you are getting the signs right, but every once in a while you would mess up on the signs. So we have cosine of theta, sine of theta, tangent of theta, and then we have secant of theta, cosecant of theta, and cotangent of theta. And we know that the sine of theta is negative 4/7. Can you tell me the cosecant of theta? How do we find the cosecant of theta?
Just flip that.
Yep, negative 7/4. So those are easy, right? So now we got to find the other 4. Who wants to tell me the cosine? If cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse.
Negative 33 squared, or square root of negative 33 over 7.
Yep. It's the square root of negative square root of 33 over 7. Hypotenuse is always positive. Got it? So when we flip that over, we have negative 7 over root 33. You have to multiply by root 33 over root 33, and it's going to be negative 7 root 33 over 33. Anybody have any questions on that? Summer, what is the tangent of theta if it's opposite over adjacent? What's the tangent?
Negative 4 over negative square root of 33.
Mm-hmm. And so that becomes positive 4 over root 33, but you can't have a 33 in the basement, right? So now you have 4 root 33 over 33. And what you're going to do for the cotangent is flip this guy, so it's root 33 over 4. What I do instead of worrying about all these signs, it's easier for me, is I know that all students take calculus. So then I know that the only positive guys are going to be the tangent, because the t is in the third quadrant, and its cousin cotangent, and everybody else is negative. So I just do it that way. So let me show you how I do it for another one so that you can see what I do. All right, this one, we're going to say cotangent of theta equals negative 14 over 11. This one's going to be ugly. And it's in the fourth quadrant. Okay? So I'm going to draw my picture in the fourth quadrant. And I have theta here. I don't worry about signs on this. I'm going to leave the signs off, and I'm going to show you what I do. I think it's a little bit cleaner instead of trying to think all the time about signs. Mine is kind of like it'll be over and you don't have to think about them anymore. So what I do is, since tangent of theta is opposite over adjacent, and it's the flip of this, it's going to be negative 11 over 14, right? Then I put opposite is 11 and adjacent is 14. Does everybody see that? And then I find the third side, so it's 14 squared plus 11 squared equals c squared, which I believe is 196 plus 121. Somebody help me out on that. So it's 317, and c equals the square root of 317. That's ugly. And this is what I do. I do the all students take calculus, and I'm going to list everything: cosine of theta, sine of theta, tangent of theta, secant of theta, cosecant of theta, and cotangent of theta. Everybody get that? And I know that only the cosine and his cousins are positive, so everybody else is negative. And I put my negative signs in here, and then I don't worry about negative signs anymore. Everybody understand what I just did? I find that easier. Do you? Yeah, figure out what quadrant it's in, figure out who's positive, and give negatives to everybody else. Okay? So the cosine and his cousin are positive, everybody else is negative. Don't worry about signs anymore. So now we're going to do cosine. Cosine is going to be 14 over root 317. Multiply it by 317 over 317, and we get 14 root 317 over 317.
That's cosine?
That's cosine. Does that make sense? We had to get the radical out of the basement. And secant, if cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. Well, that's a little bit easier. That's root 317 over 14. So the sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So that's going to be 11 over root 317. And it's going to be negative, but don't worry about that because the negative sign's already up there. And you multiply by 317 over 317. And it's negative 11 root 317 over 317. Well, cosecant is going to be hypotenuse over opposite, and that's going to be negative root 317 over 11. They already gave you the cotangent, which is negative 14 over 11, so the tangent is going to be negative 11 over 14.